A good-sized group of people gathered in the event room at the Burlington Public Library last week to learn more about an important and inspirational part of our country's history. There was a presentation by members of the Colonel Charles E. McGee Chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen based out of Hanscom Air Force Base on the history of the original Tuskegee Airmen, the first group of African-American pilots who proved vital in World War II by flying escort missions for American bombers. The Tuskegee Airmen were not only fighting a physical war against the Axis powers, but were also engaged in a struggle against stereotypes based on racist assumptions of their capabilities, stereotypes they proved time and time again were unfounded and wrong.
So they were the first bunch of black pilots that came together and proved to the nation that, hey, we can do this, because it was frowned upon, and all the documents that were put forth that said that blacks could not perform these feats during that time. And this drove them to prove everyone wrong. So they knew that they were capable and had a love for flying, and their job was to go out and to do the best that they could and help America win the wars.
The modern Tuskegee Airmen have undertaken the task of keeping in the history and memory of the original fighter pilots alive and using their stories as a way of inspiring future generations to rise above adversity.
What's dying is the legacy of the folks that actually perform these tremendous feats. And as I mentioned, the average age of these folks is 95 years old. So the generation and some of the tremendous things that they did, not only to break the color barrier, but to help win wars, all that knowledge is going to be lost if we don't go around and let people know how these things happen. So that's our job, is to go around and let folks know what actually happened during those times and the obstacles that they faced in doing it. But in the end, they were proud Americans, and they got the job done.
The group also focuses on modern education and encourages today's students to pursue science and technology, and they work to support them in those endeavors.
I mean, the original Tuskegee Airmen, obviously their mission was to, fly, fight, and win. As far as escorting the bomber pilots and all that, our mission today is basically to educate not only about the whole Tuskegee experience, but also with kids, we're talking about STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's kind of one of the focuses that we have today. And one of the things that we do is we raise money to, A, keep the chapter afloat, and B, present scholarships to the youth.
Though the Tuskegee Airmen had to fight to prove themselves in a world and a military structure that saw them as less than their white peers, once they were in a theater of war, they were accepted by many of their fellow soldiers.
So the barriers that they faced at home were extremely reduced overseas. So they didn't there weren't really color barriers. There were some, but not as prevalent as it was in the United States. So you could go to any restaurant. There were no restroom barriers or anything like that. A person was a person, and you did your job to the best of your ability, and you were treated as an equal. That's probably the biggest takeaway from that.
Finally, what the Tuskegee Airmen and other African American soldiers proved in battle helped with the struggle for civil rights at home.
Camaraderie and all the tremendous things that they were able to accomplish over there. They brought all that knowledge and experience back with them, and they carried on and did what they needed to do to get the job done and to prove to America that we can do this.
From the Burlington Public Library, I'm BNEWS Director Rich Hosford.